Can we bring in anyone from the Environment Agency? I think you might have.
Yeah, my name's Barry Russ. I'm the my name's Barry Russell. I'm the project manager for all the hydropower schemes on with the tenants. Teddington is one of the initial ones. We've got one going in at Romney, which is due to completion later this year, as well as others that have been expressions of interest. So Teddington here, along with Bell and Sunbury, are in first expressions of interest. Three more one out from Marlow, Bolton and Bodmin. So we've got a very keen interest in making sure that any schemes that go in meet our very strict criteria. And the way I describe it is our role is actually to sit between on the continuum, because we personally can get criticised quite often because it takes a long time for a hydropower scheme to go in. There's people in the community that want this to happen and want it to happen quickly, and we're being dragging our heels because we have a lot of procedures in terms of consent, making sure the environmental reports are done, making sure any fisheries monitoring is done. So the safeguards we put in place are can for some people seem to hinder the process. For others, Mark Lloyd from the National Group, from the National from the National Trust, along with yourselves, have a different view and say that we shouldn't be doing this at all. So we are effectively the regulator that sits between various groups and wanting to get the schemes to happen, to make sure they happen where they're not going to have a detrimental impact on the environment. Now, some things we're not going to do because this is very new technology. The first one at Romney going later this year, as I mentioned, that's going to we will learn from that. The developers will learn from that, and that learning can then put into future schemes. What we can't do is we can't say we're going to put the brakes on anyone doing new development until we are 100% certain that there will be no impact whatsoever. We do have to progress with these things, and our role is to make sure that we can balance the competing views. That's really where the Environment Agency sits. We get referred to quite a lot in terms of the Environment Agency asks us to do this, asks us to do that. There is a process. There's an eight-stage gateway process, and the last stage of that is construction. So before that, there's 8 big stages which have to be gone through. Any developer will have to make sure that they've convinced us and done all the checks and balances that are necessary.
Can you give us a quick outline of what those checks and balances are? I mean, I know obviously there's a parent license required.
There is your external to us. One of them will be expression of interest, then you'll have effectively the period by which we do the development, 2 years, having got development in place before we then go back out to market again. So it's effectively the hands-off period. We've then got there'll be planning permission, there will be consent required from us. There will be flood risk assessments that you will have to do, which you will provide to us to make sure that what the impact of what you're doing won't increase the flood risk in that area. And the question came in about why can't we make the whole Weir a hydropower scheme. The reason for that being is the two extremes we're most concerned about is during low flows and during high flows, during floods, 2007 floods, for example. That Weir has to be capable of managing both sets of flows. So in low flow conditions, can the Weir keep levels such that navigation upstream is assured, because we have a duty under the Thames Conservancy Act to make sure navigation has access. So by making the whole Weir a hydropower scheme, there wouldn't be that control that we have with the gates and with the overflows. During a flood situation, quite the opposite happens. We want to get rid of as much as possible in the channel so that the Weir is operating as freely as possible, so that the Weir is operating as freely as possible. The gates can then be pulled, the overflow structures used, and the space that's being taken up by the Archimedes screws is absolutely minimal, and they can still pass the flood flow through them as well. So they can't use the whole of the Weir. It's what's called a hands-off flow, which is anything above a certain level, a certain flow, can all go through the Archimedes screw. They can take as much as they want. But when it goes down to a certain flow, if it goes below that, then that has to be used elsewhere. So it has to be provided for navigation and even flow across the Weir. So trying to get a bit of a broad background as to where our role fits in.
Is it? I've got 2 points. One, was it not the case that originally the Environment Agency said they would not go ahead with any more hydropower projects on the Thames until the one at Windsor, was it, at Romney, was actually in place and had been operating for a couple of years. Right, and the other point is it not true that the Environment Agency has multiple departments, one of which is yours, one of which is the Fisheries Department, which was formerly, I think, maybe the National Rivers Authority, I'm not sure, and the Fisheries Department is completely gagged over all this and not allowed to say anything at all.
Well, I'll answer the second point first, because if the Fisheries Department is completely gagged, the specialists that we have that are giving us advice in terms of
Oh, internally they might be able to say stuff, but publicly they're not allowed to say anything.
Mark Lloyd has explained to John Sutton, have you spoken to John Sutton? I'm sure, there is no gagging going on.
You are correct, sir. You are correct. The Environment is very keen on hydropower, fast track and electric and super, and it's all for green energy and hydropower. We just want knowledge what the damage will do.
And that's why we are able to provide the advice in terms of where we would see if there is any potential for any environmental damage. On your other point, yes, we did back in 2008, we said let's progress with Romney Weir, get it functioning, and see what impact it has, see how good it is at generating flow, see whether this is something that's viable in the longer term for other weirs, back in 2008. At the time, the developer was hopefully going to get it in within the year and it was going to be operating. The various developers, NPower's been involved, EDF have been involved, and they've looked at it and felt it's not economic for them, or for whatever reason they didn't want to progress it. It then got held up until Seaport, Southeast Power Engineering Limited, come in. They've now got the development by which time they've actually lost time. Now, that put us in a position of saying, okay, well, let's just delay everything on all the other weirs for another few years until we're happy with what the effects are. So we would then be urging very much on the side of what we're saying on this continuum of the side of let's actually have absolutely no effect, county has no effect. Completely disregard the fact that there is this potential to generate power, and the government, the 2015 commitment the government's got to have 15% of all power being renewable, we would have ignored. So we have to put a balanced approach into that. Yes, we will still learn things from Romney that can be applied to other schemes in the future. But you can't sit still on this. We've got to move with it, and we've said that to our committee, we've explained that to them, and they gave us the support that we carry forward with it.
Okay, thanks very much. I would just like to add that there will be, because the technology has been tested as far as fisheries is concerned, and there are multiple studies on whether or not there's any impact, and there's no impact, there's no harmful impact on fishing.
What's the results of the study on oxygen content? Because presumably the energy is taken out of the water as it goes down those screws. It doesn't bounce around and oxygenate nicely like it does in a weir. And so I'd imagine that there's some disturbance of the flow at the bottom of the weir. It's going to have quite an effect.
I can't answer that question because I'm not the right person to answer. I know, Brendan, you're Barrows here from this locally water power specialist. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Oxygenation with the power taken out. Yes, the power is taken out of the water. Yes, there is a reduction in the tumbling effect, but that's one of the reasons there's a handoff flow, so that at low flows there's always water going over the weir that's going to have the tumble and oxygenation effect, and at high flows we're using, if all four screws were going, we would be using less than 50% or approximately 50% of the available flow. So we're going to be using 32 cubics. There's going to be more than 50 in the Thames. So generally, from 50 down to 32, there's plenty of oxygenation. Then there's a standard amount that carries on. So although taking the power out does marginally reduce the oxygenation, it is marginal.
I think one of the points there is that it depends on where you're installing hydropower. And I would certainly be there many places in this country where hydropower is not the answer. The Environment Agency has this, they've identified types of vapor leaks are suitable for hydrocarbons. And when you consider that, how many thousand types are there of potential with?
They came up with 26,000.
Right. Yes, they only had such an interest of 3, of which there's now another potential of 3. So you can see how cautious they're being and acknowledging that there's a whole range out there, but some sites are
There's 12 on the thing
proposed, but some of the environment agencies themselves have gone forward. But, is that some other people have gone forward independently to the environment agencies that we'd like to undertake hydropower at this time. But if they haven't, of course, got a license yet, then that does mean the environment agency is considering whether or not that particular site is appropriate. I go further to this other site where there's all sorts of reasons why we shouldn't put hydropower. Because if it's a narrow stretch of river and you're going to be blocking off parts of that river, then you're affecting flow, you're also affecting fish passage, you're creating blockages. Teddington Weir is already a massive blockage, and it is just naturally a big block, a big hunk of concrete steel in the middle of the river, common sense steel, which is why there was fish passage there. However, we're coming along and taking the existing fish passage potential and increasing that alongside the environment agency. And if we don't do this, nobody else is going to, because it's going to cost a very large sum of money to do that. So I say, yes, some locations, not suitable. Some locations, really, really bad. At Teddington, we believe it is suitable and is good, and all of the studies that we've seen indicate this as well. And it is an ongoing negotiation and discussion with the environment agencies looking at all of this. We haven't got a license yet. You know, it's possible. Studies will indicate it's not possible. We won't get a license, it won't happen. But all indications to date have been that Teddington is a suitable location to do it.
Can I just add, just briefly, that of course we just like to invite anyone who has environmental concerns to let us know what they think should be included in the environmental impact assessment. Because we have commissioned another body to do that work for us, and they are ongoing developing all the studies.
Just to add that very briefly, and send this environment agency as well. If you have any concerns that you're not sending to Ham Hydro, send it to the environment agency, because they will make that to do it. I mean, we will do it anyway, but just to be completely open and say, send any concerns you have, both from the environment agency, you have to send.
Okay, then I think there's more questions.
Yeah, well, first of all, just to scope and any change like this is almost bound to have some effect. But I'm not quite sure what the concerns are, and I'm not quite sure why it shouldn't actually have a positive benefit. Why this change might not actually benefit you. I'm not really sure what the worries are.
You mean I don't think there are many benefits to renewable energy.
I'm just talking in terms of the ecology. Why it shouldn't benefit that as well.
Until you know what this is, how do you know it's going to benefit or not?
There is a lot of data that has been passed.
What's actually done over the last 40 years is extracting tackles, for example. You've seen flows reduced to around 15% of what they were pre-1976 now. What we should be saying, the increase in population in London, there'll be greater extraction from Thames, reducing flow even further. I don't know whether that's mitigated in figures, whether you've actually factored that into the hedge fund data that you're actually using to produce the energy that they're actually going to produce. I don't know whether that's regardless, anyway, there's going to be no reduction in the water through the Thames. Then you've got climate change, weather models to actually sort of...
I just want to bring in Paul, because Paul Parker is the department team, and he's done all the modelling.
I'm Paul Barker. We did complete the flow model, and it was based on, it's been based on the previous 100 years worth of data, and that incorporates flows of extreme weather conditions over that period as well. We've also incorporated a certain factor of safety just to take into account changes in the future. So it is built into the calculations at the moment.
And of course, any sub-risk assessment takes into account the 1 in 100 year plus climate change event, flood event. So that's built into that assessment. Very positive.
Just one of them is regarding the extraction.